Today we're going to do a January wrap up in my reading journal and get ready for February. So let's go ahead and get started. Hey y'all, welcome back to Dots and Beyond. My name is Beth. Today we are in my reading journal and we are going to do a quick wrap up of my January reading and then go ahead and get things set up so that I can start recording my February reading. So we are just going to go ahead and get started. And I have added this tab for January so I can just jump straight there. I will show you those tabs here in a little bit when we get ready to do February. And of course January, my Poe Pick for January was the Black Cat. I'm gonna go ahead and talk about it first just a little bit. The Black Cat is one of Edgar Allan Poe's darkest stories, so if this is the first Poe that you've read along with me, do not be dissuaded. He definitely has some darker material for those. I like the gothic vibes and the darkness, but for some people it might not be your thing. So I just put a couple of notes here in my reread of The Black Cat. We definitely have an unreliable narrator, right? This guy is in a descent into madness, but he thinks he's sane. He also knows that alcohol affects his behavior and yet he doesn't cut it out, so he's an alcoholic. We ride the fantastical line in the story between reality and supernatural. The cat, of course, that Edgar Allan Poe's character kills in this story is named Pluto, which is the Roman god of the underworld. That's obviously not an accident. And just to run down this story really quickly, this guy professes to be an animal person. He and his wife have lots of animals. They love their animals. He has this favorite black cat named Pluto, and somewhere along the way he starts this descent into madness and ends up killing the cat. And then he begins to have remorse for the loss of the cat, and so he goes out and finds himself yet another cat that very much mimics the cat he already had. And in a fit of violence towards the cat, his wife gets in the way and he turns on his wife and then he murders his wife. And then in good Poe fashion, he tries to cover it up by burying her in a wall. The house burns down. There's an image of a cat. It's all very gothic. I'm not going to give it completely away. It's a 20-minute audio book. If you want to go ahead and read that, you can check out my January setup. I have links to both the audio and then just the text of The Black Cat. So let me know in the comments below if you read The Black Cat along with me. What did you think about The Black Cat? For me, in this reread, it had probably been, 20 years since I had read The Black Cat. It is not my favorite of the Poe stories, even now in adulthood. So I'm going to give it a solid 3 stars, I think. I might up that to a 4. I don't know. I really like the whole underworld elements that come into it. One of the other things that I really like, and I don't know if you picked up on it, but our narrator, or Poe as the storyteller, he writes shorter, more concise sentences when the author is sane, and they get longer and more convoluted when the author is in his fits of mania or as he's descending into madness, that sort of thing. And so the writing mimics the character, and that I very much appreciate through the course of the story. It's definitely an element that I like. So there is my rundown of The Black Cat. On my Read 365 challenge, I have read every day, even if it was just 4 or 5 minutes of an audiobook in the car on the way to work, because my commute is very short. But I have managed to read every day, maybe not a lot every day, but I have read every day. And so I have been keeping my Read 365 log filled, and it is very faint. One of the big changes that I made in my journal over the course of January was that I picked myself up a red Pigma Micron, and these were originally faint gray lines, and I went over them in red on some of the other pages as well, just to add in that other element. Where else did I do it? I did it here on my series tracker. I added red lines instead of light gray, just to give me a little bit more contrast on the page. But let's go ahead and get into this reading. So this month I read PostScript by Cecilia Ahern, and I am going to stick that here. I've already put all my notes and stuff in here. One thing I did do, I figured out that when I was printing my stickers, I had it stuck on the PDF version that says to fit to page instead of actual size. And that's why some of my stickers the first time around came out too small. And see, this is going to be a little bit bigger, and we can go ahead and fit it in over here. How I set up my reading journal is that I put some quotes I like about the book. I have my rating, and then I just kind of have some free flow here. I didn't love this book. I'm into solid 3 stars. It is an okay read. I have always been a fan of Cecilia Ahern. She always has a little bit of a fantastical element to her, and I'm terrible at taking off stickers, y'all. You're going to see me struggle with these a lot. She always has a fantastical element to sort of her realism and her romances. I'm a very big fan of the original P.S. I Love You, the book more than the movie, but I love Gerard Butler, so I kind of also love the movie, even though they're very different. I definitely have an affiliation for Love, Rosie. That's another one of those books of hers that I love. PostScript is a sequel to P.S. I Love You, and it seemed to me just to be very self-gratifying for Cecilia Ahern to write another book for the fans of her most popular work. It was okay. It just wasn't that great. It's totally readable if you're an Ahern fan, but it's definitely not one of those that is her best. I had one moment in the book that brought me to tears, but it had to do with adoption, and I myself am adopted, and so that was sort of the one moment that I could see coming. I knew it was coming in the book, but other than that, it was just fine. It was just fine. And you're going to see here that I didn't have the greatest start to 2023 when it comes to my reading, other than the fact that I am reading more than I was reading in 2022. So that is a win. But the books that I have chosen, not that great. PostScript was also on my backlist of books that I own. So I have filled in this little half red circle here to indicate that this is one of the books, and here it is, that I have gotten off of my physical to be read. So this is going to go back on my Cecilia Ahern shelf. I have a whole little cube dedicated to her books. I don't think I'm going to unhaul it, but not my favorite of hers. All right, next up, I read The Highland Witch. This I did by audiobook. So this is one of those books that I was in bed and I finished one book and I wanted to keep reading, but I didn't want to get up and go find a book. And so, ooh, that is totally crooked. Let's see if I can fix that. No, you are already stuck. And so no, it's still crooked. That's fine. I went to Audible and picked up The Highland Witch because I like witchy things and I'm drawn to Scotland. And I thought, well, okay, sure. And so I read this book and it was 2.5 stars. I don't have a physical copy of it. It's nothing I'm going to need to unhaul. Am I going to recommend it to anybody? Maybe. I mean, if you definitely sort of like the Outlander vibe, but maybe not Outlander itself, this is something you could pick up. The original title of this book was titled Corag, which is the name of the character, and I wish they'd left it that way. It definitely has more character that way, but this is the story of a young, we're going to call her a witch just because that is what she's stereotyped as, who leaves England and escapes to the Highlands. She is there during the Glencoe massacre of 1692. There is a fabled witch named Corag in that time period, in that place, and I enjoyed some of the history. It's a very quiet book. She tells her tale to a missionary or pastor, preacher type individual because she's in jail for her witchcraft and for helping to save some of the clan in this massacre. And so it's told through her telling him her story because she feels like if she doesn't tell him her story, nobody's going to remember who she is. And then it's told through letters that this Irish pastor writes back to his wife in Ireland. What I do appreciate about it is that, set in the 1600s, this religious figure has a change of heart. He comes to see her as a person and not a witch. He keeps, I understand that whole part of the storytelling and someone becoming enlightened and opening their eyes and being less judgmental. But overall, there's a romance in here I didn't like at all. It just didn't need to be there. And that romance kind of hints at maybe that's the only reason that she would have saved the individuals in this clan. I just didn't like it. It didn't need to be there. Not everything has to have a romance in it. So, Highland Witch, 2.5 stars. It has some very beautiful writing in it, but not necessarily my vibe. I think my favorite quote I wrote down was, "We all stood amongst my words like leggy birds in a stream." Great imagery. But we are going to go ahead and move on to the next book that I read, and this is Leopard at the Door by Jennifer McVeigh. This has been on my TBR since it was released in 2017. I picked up a copy of this because this takes place in Kenya during colonial times. Those of you who've been here with me for the long haul know that I was raised in post-colonial Kenya. here is Leopard at the Door. I picked this up off of the bookshelf in 2017, probably around the same time, because I read the synopsis and it very much seemed like a book that I was starting to outline as a book that I might actually write. It is absolutely not the book that I would have written. It is a book that makes me very angry. Our main character grew up in Kenya, was sent to boarding school in England. She's returning to Kenya in the midst of the beginnings of revolution. There was a group called the Mau Mau in Kenya that really did a lot of stirring up of the revolution and overthrowing the British and gaining independence and all of that sort of thing. And this character is supposed to be our enlightened, I grew up here, even though I'm white, I understand the African type character. And she is not that. She's still completely ignorant. She's insipid. She is weak. She is infuriating. Again, there's another romance in this that does not need to be there. I got very angry at a point when a character that we already loathe, we know this individual is a horrible, horrible human being. He is a British officer. We know he's not nice to people of any color. He's just a horrible human, but he's definitively a racist. And at one point in the novel, probably 3/4 the way through, he drops the N-word, and it's just gratuitous. There's no reason for it to be there because we already know that he is a racist. And that word just doesn't even need to be in the book. She didn't need to write it. It didn't need to be passed over by an editor. There's just times that, there's words that we just don't use, and yet it made it through. Jennifer McVeigh has also written a book about South Africa. I'm not going to read it. I did a little bit of digging. She's never lived in Africa. Everything she's done is with research, and if you do your research well, like a book that's also about colonialism coming up in this video a little bit later, you can do that. You can do it correctly, and you can't just skim the surface of your research and think you know everything about a particular time in history or its aftermath. So I am going to unhaul it. It's going to come off my bookshelf, and now I might still write the book that I was starting to outline, and changed my mind because I thought somebody had already written it. And it was, like I said, definitively not the book that I would have written. All right, moving on. Self-help book, An F Yourself. This is another one of those ones that I was just like, I guess I'm going to read this nonfiction today. I don't particularly know why. I did do it on Audible as well. And it's nothing earth-shattering. Let's just say that. I mean, it's a self-help book, and self-help books are self-help books. It's absolutely nothing earth-shattering. Gary John Bishop is Scottish. And so his very no-nonsense, get your ass off the couch sort of advice is far more charming coming from somebody with a thick Scottish brogue than it is, I guess somebody else. Like I said, most of it is common sense, but sometimes you need to hear some common sense. And I had some moments in here where I think the biggest thing that he talked about is in motivation. Here we go. We often view ourselves as procrastinators or lazy or unmotivated, when in reality we're simply unwilling. We put things off or avoid them completely because we tell ourselves we just don't want to do it or that we can't do it. And it isn't so much that I am willing but too lazy to, say, lose weight. It really just means at this point, if you've been overweight for 20 years and you haven't done anything about it, and there's no medical condition preempting sort of that, like you are capable of losing weight, at this point, it's not that you want to, but you can't. It's that you're just unwilling to. And that's probably a terrible example. I say that because I'm a big girl. I probably could lose weight if I put a little more effort into it. But it comes down to, are you willing or unwilling to do a particular thing? Again, it's a self-help book. 3 stars, because he does frame it around pretty much the words of other people. We listen to him quote from a lot of different philosophers throughout history, and then he expands on that quote. So he just collects a lot of ideas into a book to kind of slap you around and get you up off of the couch. It's sort of how I feel about that book. Would I buy a physical copy? I'm actually thinking about it. There's just some things in it that resonated for some reason at the time that I read it, and it's not normally the type of book I would actually pick up. So again, a little strange for me, but not unwelcome. And it was a very quick read. It's only 224 pages. It was very, very short. And then we are going to tackle last year's everybody's favorite book or not favorite book or too big of a book to read. I am actually not done. I am on right at the end of chapter 25. 4. Yeah. So I'm starting chapter 25. I'll finish it this weekend, so I'll finish it before the end of January. So I've just gone ahead and created myself a page to get it into the January section. We're going to go ahead and stick our sticker in because I know where that's going to go. Oh, hello. Got that one all wrong too. Oh, that's right. This is one of the ones that was printed back when I did the teeny tiny printing into the wrong size. Eventually I'm going to come along and fill that in and cover that in, but I'm not going to do that on camera. It's not that important. And what is this little flap? Well, I had kind of decided that books that very, very much resonated with me were those that I knew were going to be considered probably a favorite of the year. I wanted to have some imagery for. And so I have created these little collages that are approximately the right dimension. I did these in Canva. So it's just a digital collage like I would do my vision board. There's a video during Plan Mess where I set up my digital vision board, and we are going to try to stick this in here because this is also on sticker paper. And if y'all have noticed, I'm kind of inept when it comes to sticker paper. I'm going to turn this way, and we are going to try to line it up exactly where it goes and put it down. And I think that worked. We'll do the other side, and then we'll actually trim that corner as well. Hang on. Here we go. You know, is it perfect? No. Does it work for me? Yeah, sure. You know, this year specifically, and I've said this about some things in my bullet journal, I'm learning to just not be so perfectionist or precise about it. I am going to need to probably put a little bit of washi tape here on the end because there's a little bit of sticky sticking up. We'll just trim that. I don't know. I'm going to worry about that later. We're going to move on to set up February, but I just wanted y'all to see, since I'm done with it yet, I haven't written my review, and what I did do was write the entire title of Babel because I feel like the title is important, the entirety of it. I know it's lengthy, but it's definitely needs to be there. This is the book on colonialism that I think Jennifer McVeigh and Leopard at the Door was trying to write about Kenya, except this one is executed correctly. It's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination. I do find our main character, Robin, mildly insufferable. I do understand his struggle. I understand being torn. If you don't know, Robin is plucked out of China as a child, brought to the UK, where he is studying at Babel, which is a, fictional sort of institute within Oxford of translators whose sole purpose is to learn various language and perpetuate the growth of the British Empire and additional colonialism and more money. And we have word magic that has to do with silver. Not going to go into the details or give everything up, but I put a little image of an 1800s Asian man. We do find out that Robin is half Asian, half white. A classical Tower of Babel image. This is just to indicate sort of translation for me. This is Oxford. We have things that take place in a library. It has to do with the Opium Wars as well. So there's just a lot of things that I put in here that I wanted to remember because I am deeply enjoying this book. It will probably end up at a 4-star for me. So I'm not done with it yet, but I will finish it this weekend, and so we're gonna go ahead and hop over and set up February. I'm gonna rearrange things a little bit on this page for January. I had put my little reading tracker here. I'm gonna move that on this side. Reading this month, because I'm reading more than I used to, I'm going to give my space over here, and then I'm just gonna leave this space for me to put my thoughts for my February Edgar Allan Poe read, which, if you can read the very light pencil, you might have already figured it out. But first, we're going to do a couple other things on the page. So this washi tape I had on the top of my January page, we're just going to go ahead and repeat it on this one as well. Do I have enough of this to do all 12 months? Probably not. But we're just going to go ahead and use this ruler, cut that off there. Cut that off there. keep that around because I'm going to need it. For the January, I colored these in gray. I have this gray. I think I'm just going to scribble. I'm just going to scribble, fill these in. And we're going to go ahead and speed up some of this as I get these elements onto the page. Okay, and there we go. We have got February set up. The Poe story that I'm going to be reading is The Telltale Heart, because February, heart, it seemed like the only choice. Of course, it is a horror. It is a short story. It is a work of fiction. It was published in 1843, and there were 2,093 words. So it is about 1,000 words shorter than The Black Cat. You know, Poe packs a punch. He gets a lot in on his various endeavors with a lot fewer words than most people do. It's one of those things that I definitely appreciate about Poe. I have mentioned these in one of my sort of favorite Amazon hauls or some such nonsense. I have, I don't know, probably 30 sheets of these in varying colors that came in a single pack for like $6, and they have all of them. They're a little bit flexible, so I like that they don't get super damaged. They've got the month and the letters on one side, and then the month and the number, like the chapter 2 and another. And I'm just gonna line this up so that it is, could actually count the actual squares, but I'm not gonna. Put that on February, fold that over, and there we have our February tag. Now the one last thing that I did forget to do was go ahead and put Babel back on my index. Now in my reading journal, my index is just the books that I've read. I haven't been reading enough that I would fill this in completely. Somebody did ask me that question on what do I do if I run out of space, and it hasn't happened yet. Because I haven't been reading enough where I'm getting to 3-4 books of the same, that start with the same letter, so it just hasn't happened. So, and Babel is on, oh look at that, I put that on the wrong. Okay, so here we go, let's fix the little thing. So I just cut up a bunch of sticker paper because obviously I had printed book cover stickers and things, so hang on just a second. So here we go, here is sticker paper. I am just gonna snip off a tiny piece of that, see if we can't get the backing off, and probably trim it just a little. I'm not even gonna trim it. We're gonna slap that right over there. Go ahead and highlight it. Obviously, that highlighted much heavier on that sticker paper than it did in my journal, because this is the exact same color that I was using. I don't understand. It's fine. It's like I said, we're just not gonna be precious about things. They're fine. They're fine. It is okay. I'm not going to get upset about it. And then I can go ahead and, I don't think I'm going to count that as a page. So we'll go ahead and make this 12. And that means the Telltale Heart starts on 13. And I'm going to go ahead and put it on here. All right, so looking back to the index, I've got Black Cat, Babel, Highland Witch, Leopard at the Door, PostScript, Telltale Heart, Unf Yourself. And then I haven't finished Babel yet, but I'm gonna go ahead and mark it as my 5th book of the year. We're close enough. Like I said, I only have a few pages left. And I don't know if you guys can see. Yeah, you can see it where I've been coloring in with that same light Tombow in 89 for my Read 365 challenge. Release Radar, I've only put one book on here so far, which is Scarlet by Genevieve Cogman, which should come out on May 9th. I have not pre-ordered it yet though. Leopard at the Door and PostScript are 2 books that I have knocked off of my physical TBR, so that's good for January. And here's our Poe picks. So we have the Black Cat, and then for February we have the Telltale Heart. Obviously didn't write that as neatly as I did the other one. book haul. Been trying to keep this updated. Obviously Highland Witch and Unf Yourself were both audiobooks, so that's the format that I got them in, and the approximate date I think that I picked them up. My book of the month club for January, which is Age of Vice by Dipti Kapoor. I'd like to read this in February. I'm really excited about this book. Will I get to it in February? Question mark. Don't know. And I don't do TBRs because I'm entirely a mood reader. So you're not going to see Beth say, these are the books that I'm reading in February. I did fill in some more of my series trackers, just putting them on here. Not that I've read any of the books from the series that I'm working on at this point, but I did put them on here. I haven't DNF'd anything. I almost DNF'd Leopard at the Door, but at that point I decided I was going to finish it for the sake of research. That's why, because I was that mad at that book. And I'm still kind of mad at myself for not DNFing it. And yet I'm mildly glad I also finished it for the sake of research. It's a big quandary. This will be my faves spread when I put my 5-star reads on here. And then we jump into January, which you have seen. And now we are set up for February and ready to go. If you're going to be reading along with the Telltale Heart with me this year, or let me know in the comments below. There were way more of you who jumped onto the Black Cat bandwagon than I anticipated. I didn't expect to start a Poe trend, but I'm thrilled that you want to read those things along with me. Yeah, but let me know your comments again on the Black Cat in the comments below. How you feel about reading the Telltale Heart for February. Have you already read it before? I have. I've read a lot of Poe in the past. And if you like this video, go ahead, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will catch you in the next one.